our guest is here.
Hello. Oh my gosh. Let there be technology that actually works. I'm so sorry.
Bravo, madam. Bravo. You are all here.
Yes, sir.
So
good to see y'all.
Good to see you too. So reintroduce yourself to the audience, because this is your second time being here, but let everyone know who you are and what you are doing.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Pamela Denise Long. I go by Denise. This is my second time being here, so thank you for liking me enough to bring me back. I am running for Illinois U.S. Senator for the election that's happening March of 2026. So just 6 weeks from now, roughly. I am living in downstate Illinois, although I've lived all over the state as well as all over the country, New York, Dallas, and Mississippi, and many points in between. I am running because there is so much craziness that is happening, so much division, so many ideas that seem immoral and blatantly wrong to me, including all the DEI nonsense and the way that people currently do it, as well as border security, national security issues. And I think people being afraid to speak truth to power. And we're going to lose our country if we don't get our stuff together.
Mm-hmm. 1 second.
Did we lose the judge?
Here you go.
I just got a thing that said, oops, connection lost, attempting to reestablish in a yellow banner. Every time it gets interesting, that's happened. But go ahead, I get the gist of it.
So
you're trying, in other words, you're doing what Barack Obama did, but from the reds instead of the blue. He was somebody that came from nowhere. You're not from nowhere, but he came from nowhere, and he managed to become U.S. Senator for the state of Illinois. But hopefully your opponent won't die on you like his did on him that got him elected.
Well, maybe, but I don't want to put death on someone, but...
No, I mean, seriously. He got elected to the state legislative body, and his opponent died before the election hit. And then when he ran for U.S. Senator, his opponent died before the election came about.
Okay, but let's just say that happened with Pamela. At least it'll be a good person in that position, as opposed to Barack Obama, who was just a grifter. You get what I'm saying?
I got you. I'm saying your qualifications are better than his.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So Barack was backed by a lot of money. People often say
Goldman Sachs, a whole lot of Goldman Sachs. They brought him to New York and they feted him. And the Heritage, you might want to know this, the Heritage Foundation voted him the third most conservative voting senator in the U.S. Senate, even though he had the lowest voting record. He got a 96% conservative ranking. The next person in the second position got a 96 plus, and the number one person got a 97 rating. So he came across, he was a fake. He was letting everybody think he was all this and that Democratic liberal, but he wasn't. He was just an opportunist who was in it for business. He and George Herbert Walker Bush, Dick Cheney, Sarah Palin, and Uncle Herbie Walker were all blood kin relatives, and his grandfather was first cousin to President George Herbert Walker Bush. And they were pushing big oil through his stepfather, Lolo Soetoro, who was the Indonesian oil baron, and George Herbert Walker Bush said Zapata Oil, and Uncle Herbie founded Halliburton. So it was a cabal, and you at least have the integrity not to be part of a big economic crime family. And you were an honest person trying to deal with bringing representation to the public. I love it.
Well stated. I love it. Yeah, no crime family, none of that. I am just trying to stand on constitutional leadership and make sure that every Illinoisan and every American is represented. So lowering the cost of health insurance, that is not solved by any stretch of the imagination. Children's health insurance will be up for reauthorization in 2027. And if they agree to extend these enhanced subsidies for another 3 years, that will be right back where we were. So that I'll need to start working on as soon as I'm sworn in, because it seems like we're caught by surprise that legislation comes up for reauthorization, and we have to do a better job of project management. We're going to have a lot of trade agreements and treaties that frankly need to be revisited with the way the president is attempting to reconstruct the economy and place Americans first in doing that. So I'm looking forward to the task.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted you to come back on, because I follow you on X, and I don't know, maybe you sent it to me or somebody else sent it to me, but I saw your reply to what Pete Hegseth. He made an announcement, and it's about a 8A program. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna play his announcement clip.
Okay.
And then we could talk about it, because some people may agree or disagree, but I think it's an important discussion to have right now. What is this? Okay, here we go.
When President Trump appointed me as your Secretary of War, I made you a series of promises. I promised that every single one of your taxpayer dollars would go toward one thing and one thing only: building the most lethal fighting force on the planet. And I promised we would gut the corruptive, unconstitutional, non-merit-based DEI programs that have weakened our military and distracted us from our primary mission. And I promised we would hunt down the waste, the fraud, and the abuse that has run rampant in this department for decades, and to instead redirect that money to President Trump's America First priorities. Well, today we are once again taking action on these promises. We're actually taking a sledgehammer to the oldest DEI program in the federal government, a program few people outside of Washington have ever heard of, that I hadn't heard of. It's called the 8A program. Now, if you're like me, you're asking yourself, what is an 8A? It's a great question. 8A refers to the Small Business Administration's program to assist, quote, small disadvantaged businesses owned by a socially disadvantaged individual or tribe, end quote. Providing these small businesses with opportunities is a laudable goal. But over the decades, as it happens, the 8A program has morphed into swamp code words for DEI, race-based contracting. And here's the worst part. In many, many instances, these socially disadvantaged businesses, they don't even do work. They take a 10%, 20%, sometimes 50% fee off the top, and then pass the contract off to a giant consulting firm, commonly known as Beltway bandits. For decades, this program, 8A, has been a breeding ground for fraud, and this administration is finally doing something about it. The Department of Justice, under Attorney General Pam Bondi, recently exposed $500 million in 8A fraud. Treasury, led by Secretary Bessent, found another $250 million, and their investigation is just beginning. Treasury, Justice, and the Small Business Administration under Administrator Loeffler are all actively investigating their 8A contracts right now. Now, in the Pentagon, $100 million sole source contracts go out the door to these 8A firms almost every day. $100 million sole source contracts go out our door to these 8A firms almost every day, without any competition or opportunity for anyone else to bid. The Department of War is required by law to do almost $100 billion worth of contracts per year with small businesses, including 8A firms. Seems 8A is quite important. But we're not required to pay enormous brokerage fees, only to have these firms pass those contracts along to giant consulting companies, and we won't. We're not doing this anymore. So effective immediately, I'm ordering a line-by-line review of every small business sole source 8A contract that is over $20 million. And we'll look at everything smaller than that too. The Department of War has the biggest chunk of 8A spending, by far, 10 times more than any other agency. So our cleanup, it's going to be 10 times tougher. It's a two-stage mission. First, if a contract doesn't make us more lethal, it's gone. We have no room in our budget for wasteful DEI contracts that don't help us win wars, period, full stop. Second, we're doing away with these pass-through schemes. We'll make sure that every small business getting a contract is the one actually doing the work, and not just some shell company funneling your money to a giant consulting firm. This approach is, of course, not meant to hurt small businesses, and that's not the point. America's full of great, amazing small businesses. This is part of a larger effort to transform our acquisition ecosystem into one that makes sense for the threats we face in the 21st century. I gave a long speech about this back in November. Our goal is to spend your money to build our defense industrial base with businesses large and small that share our mission, not to line the pockets of Beltway fraudsters or to advance the agenda of DEI apologists. Only lethality, and we're going to look at every single contract.
So you also replied, you said, meanwhile, it says here, and you put a clip, the U.S. Department of Commerce, through its Minority Business Development Agency, signed a memorandum of understanding, MOU, in January of 2025 with the Orthodox Jewish Chamber of Commerce to recognize Jewish-owned businesses as minority business enterprises, MBEs, granting them access to federal programs, contract loans, and grants previously unavailable, aiming to correct a longstanding oversight and support for this significant minority group. This historic agreement opens doors for Jewish entrepreneurs to compete for federal resources and economic opportunities, acknowledging their unique challenges despite being a minority population. Parties involved, MBDA, part of the Commerce Department, and the Orthodox Jewish Chamber of Commerce, signed January 13th to the 14th, 2025, purpose to provide global markets. Marks the first time Jewish businesses are formally recognized as MBEs, allowing them to tap into billions in federal support. So is this, what is your issue with this? Because I actually, let me just share this here. I went and I looked up, I went to the website of the SBA, and it says Small Business Administration suspended 1,000 companies in the AA program. SBA made the decision after it deemed those small business non-compliant with its federal data request from December. Suspended firms have 45 days to appeal the suspension. SBA will release further information on suspension in the coming days. Suspicion comes as SBA sent a letter to more than 4,300 firms in December seeking 13 different data, ranging from the list of companies' employees to bank statements for the last 3 fiscal years, to a copy of all AA contracts. So basically, they're saying we're going to suspend your contract with the 8A program if you don't give us big statements from the last 3 years, basically. Because I guess there's a lot of fraud going on. And it says SBA issues clarifying guidance that race-based discrimination is not tolerated.
Yeah, so let's provide some context to all of this. These so-called minority programs were very much designed at the time to undergird Black American capitalism. Everybody and their mama has been shoehorned into it, including white women. And because of a federal judicial ruling from, I think, 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, from the MBDA, which was expressly designed for Black American and, Hispanic business development, they decided white people needed to be included in it because it was deemed a race-based program. So I'm definitely for the auditing of all of it, because everybody who does contracting knows that these Prime contractors will find a minority firm with 51%, right? Minority, which is broadly defined as anyone who is not Anglo at this point, right? You white Hispanic, you're a minority. So a white person who speaks Spanish, basically, you're a minority. So I'm for the auditing. I'm for the efficiency and effectiveness. However, I think it is hypocritical for the administration to talk about being another shoehorning into what was supposed to be designed for a lineage group, right? I'm curious to know why Jewish businesses hadn't been considered minority businesses before. Could it be because, by and large, when you look at per capita, the wealth for Jewish people is much more than the wealth for the Black American population that it was supposed to be designed for? So if the Trump administration is trying to do away with race-based programming, then they need to not be shoehorning everyone into those legacy programs that were designed for Black Americans. They need to be returning to a lineage-based, injury-based program rather than compounding the fact that those things that were designed for us are going to everybody, including people who generally have more wealth than we do. And I would definitely say the Jewish population fits that description of having more than us. So why put them in our stuff?
Perhaps what's going on is bureaucracies being what they are. Everyone is not privy to what they're up to. You're at the top. You may not be aware of something that is being done in lower echelons of departments you may be over. So you have to find a way to get that information to you. And like, what's Goldman Sachs, by the way? When you start including the ethnicity or the characteristics of the demographic as the qualifying parameters, you get a problem when you don't deal with it being ethnically neutral. See, if you start talking about they're entitled to it because they're Jewish, then you start having to get into why, because you start running out of objective reasons to include somebody as a result of economic status or privation. That particular ethnic group is definitely not deprived of a circumstance, and it's a big problem. For example, outside of the government thing, CBS was sponsoring a certain Negro who got a lot of Black support from elected officials and the Black public because they thought he was going to set up a Black network. He wasn't. He was just going to do reruns. And the fact of the matter was, CBS was behind him because CBS had a contract with Fox that said they couldn't go through directly to cable unless it was through a minority. Otherwise, they had to subcontract with Fox, and that was bad. People knew network when it wasn't the case. It was just the CBS front. So what you described is a long-going thing, and it used to be a hustle that was discussed way back 50 years ago in the very early 70s when people were getting out of college and had bright ideas as to what to do. Some of us said you're going to run into a mess eventually if it's not race neutral or ethnically neutral. So some people still haven't learned, and that becomes discrimination that does not have a compensatory reason. So it's going to require some adjustment, and maybe somebody needs to bring that to the attention of the executive branch.
Yeah, happy to do that at any point in time. And people need to realize, per the June 2023 affirmative action ruling, programs that prioritize exclusively or primarily and or exclusively legacy Black Americans survive strict scrutiny when the program is attempting to redress the harms that we're experiencing. The conservative justices, all of them, including Clarence Thomas, reiterated that fact. So to make these programs race-based, as if it is wrong to make it about us for the hundreds of years and multiple generations of deprivations we've experienced can survive strict scrutiny. And the conservative justices said just that. So I want to read this just to provide some evidence.
Well, in other words, the ruling very simply is it's supposed to be remedial, undoing some specific harm done to a group that was calculated harm or whatever. Clarence Thomas, by the way, went to Yale, and he was the last person admitted in his first year of law school. And he was admitted under a minority special admission program. I know that because they were trying to recruit me the year before to that program.
Gotcha. So listen to this. One 2013 to 2015 survey indicated a median annual income for Jewish households around $129,000. That's median, right? So 50% made less, 50% made more. While Black households were listed as a median of $35,000. So 50% made more, 50% made less. That's significant. So to have Black Americans competing with people whose household income is already 3 to 4 times ours is grossly unfair. And to have people, because the measure, like you said, of remediation is not there. And if there are some specific concerns around Jewish deprivation, then that needs to be taken care of separately from shoehorning more people into minority set-asides. And if the administration is keen on rightly getting away with the racial grift of people putting up some shill Black person company while the white person or whoever is really benefiting from it, great, do that. Look at all companies, right? Because surely these little 8A companies ain't the only ones that this grift is happening to. Surely it's not just the minority programs where people are thieving and stealing from the United States government. So make even your dojing race neutral. Look at everything. 8A is a great place to start, particularly if you're going to return it to original intent. MBDA is a great place to start, particularly if you're going to return it to a lineage-based, injury-based intent for Black Americans.
Also, dealing with the War Department, some of the contracts that they're angling to knock out had to do with such things as coming up with a skirt that might appeal to transsexual transsexuals who were trying to be female as an alternative to the trousered uniform that males usually wore for the U.S. military. Such things as that need to be cut out.
Yeah.
But another thing I would ask you to look into is the definition of Hispanic being something other than language uses. They need that. My late stepmother was Chinese in extraction, but because she was from the Philippines and spoke Hablar Español muy bien, she was classified as Hispanic. And something needs to be done definitely about that ethnic group where you fill out a federal form and the first block says Hispanic, non-Hispanic.
Yeah.
If you're non-Hispanic, you have to fill out white or Caucasian, Black or African American, and then the whole laundry list of various ethnicities in the United States. But if you say Hispanic, you pass over that. Now, personally, I think that's offensive because it builds up a falsely large ethnic group. And for example, I have a good friend, used to be my tailor. Everything I wore from suits to shirts was custom made. She's classified as Hispanic because her family, or she's from Argentina. And she habla español muy bien. But her parents were from Nazi Germany and they fled at the end of World War II to Argentina. So she's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and of Germanic extraction for multiple generations.
Well,
Adolf and the boys would have loved her, but she's classified as Hispanic.
Let me add this in too, because I would say the same thing, that when you have the box for African American. No, I think we need our own separate box because Black immigrants are lumped in with us, right? And so it's that the whole philosophy that you just explained about Hispanics, that needs to be altered. So does Black people. That African American thing.
That's kind of taken care of itself, because on the forms in question, I was looking at a copy of it online here, say for purchasing a firearm. It asks you in a set of questions, are you a naturalized citizen, et cetera, et cetera? What is your point of origin? And that is before you get to this category of, are you Hispanic, non-Hispanic? And if you say non-Hispanic and you have to figure it, it's specifically directed toward Black Americans, because nobody in that category is to be included if you are a naturalized citizen. That's separate from your circumstances.
If you're a naturalized citizen, we have citizenship through constitutional amendment, right? Nobody who doesn't have that, who wasn't here when that happened, right? A descendant. If your ancestors weren't here to receive that citizenship through the Reconstruction era amendment at that time, you should not be collected in data collection along with us. You should identify by your country of origin. Now, there may be something we can do for people who immigrated here in the 1900s and they preceded the 1965 not Johnson Reed, but the Hart-Celler Act. There might be something special we can do for that because they endured some of the discrimination as well, though they willfully came here. But I agree that we should have a separate category that should keep track of us in particular. And of course, in 2023 or thereabouts, we did a lot of that work. 22-23 of advising the White House Office of Management and Budget under Joe Biden about how those of us who are legacy Black Americans wanted that protected class status and to differentiate ourselves from Black immigrants. And the concern of the people who listened to that in the OMB basically said that they want African American and Black to encompass everybody. So they weren't.
It's funny that you brought that up because the OMB also they also created Middle Easterns. They have their own separate boxes now. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they advocated for it for years, and that's how they got it. Yep,
right. And it seemed like, but when it's us, we have a lot of Native Black Americans fighting to include the Africans and everybody else who looks Black in ours. So, but I for the same reason, Hispanics need to be clarified. Middle Eastern and them need to be clarified. We need separate boxes to be clarified separately. But I want to swing it back to the 8A.
Can I say this before you do that? Hispanics have, during this OMB advisement, they wanted to collapse race and ethnicity. For the very reasons that the judge eloquently put together, that cannot happen. And if it does happen, then they need to be removed out of the minority status. The only reason a Hispanic person should be included as a minority in the United States is if they originate from honestly, I can't even think of a reason, because in 1848, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexicans, which is the predominant Hispanic population in the United States, they've been white by treaty. So they didn't go through Jim Crow, although they're trying to construct this Juan Crow narrative. Although, of course, there were Anglo-white people who were like, y'all ain't white, just like Italians weren't and Jews weren't and whatnot. But they didn't experience the same things that we have. So I honestly can't even think of a real justification for them to be competing with us for anything in the first place. And you're a new arrival here from any country shouldn't confer to you any special dispensations, and certainly should not have us splitting our little bit of pie that we get with you for you not having been here. That should not be our problem, that you're new to the country.
May I suggest that it's political? For example, I'm in Tennessee right now because I had what was known as a Reginald Herbert Smith Community Lawyer Fellowship. It was operated out of Howard University. And we dealt with poverty law. I got sent here. I was supposed to stay in Los Angeles, but President Richard Nixon reached an agreement with Hispanic representatives to restrict assignment of those who were getting the federally funded Reggies, they called them, in California that was reserved for Hispanics, and it cut off just when I was about to get in it. So you were told you had a choice, either you didn't get it or you would accept going out of state to someplace else for 6 months before you could go back to California. So I did that one. I got sent to Tennessee. But when I got sent to Tennessee, they sent out an advisement that on further negotiations, you couldn't come back for the 2 years. So I got stuck here in Tennessee, and I've been here the last 53 or 4 years after that. So, I mean, it was all of this is a political thing, and it builds up, a body of people that supported the Democratic Party. Now, Los Angeles, California.
Hey, Judge, stop for a second.
Yeah.
I need to bring this in because we're short on time here. I want to go back to the 8A contract, right? That conversation. So I was doing a little bit of research, and I wanted to see, who was getting what, how much of the contracts, who was getting awarded, and Black Americans were getting awarded these 8A contracts at the most at 28%. Then came the subcontinent Asian American, 21.8%, Hispanic American, 21%, Asian Pacific American, 12%, other American, 10%, Native American, 6.3%, right? I don't think this is including white. This is just minorities, right? Breaking down to minorities. So Black
Anglo anyway, because white Hispanic is a real thing.
White, right. It says Hispanic American, so I'm just going to assume non-white Hispanic.
And
you can't do that because there is no such category under the American system. It is Hispanic, and it includes Black people, Asian people, Native American people, people from Spain, white Europeans, one generation removed from being in South America, and it really includes everybody.
Right, but there are applications that says Hispanic non-white.
Because it's ethnicity, and then you choose race. And the point being made is Mexicans have been legally white since 1848. Right.
And if they choose, right. So they actually have an option to actually check off white if they choose to.
Right.
Just like Egyptians that come here, they could actually check off white if they choose to as well. Or bounce back and forth. But anyway, Black Americans, 28% of the AA contract dollars.
And that means Black. They don't differentiate by lineage. So that we don't even know how many of that is actually us.
Exactly.
See, that's the problem. They don't. But you see, when you get into white, non-white, you run into like one of the biggest, most influential ethnic groups in the United States are the Irish. Irish were considered non-white until a joint act of Congress, House and Senate, in 1877 issued a declaration that henceforth they would be considered white. They were not before that. That was out of recognition for their heroic services to the North and South during the American Civil War. I went to school in Los Angeles, and I remember my 4th grade teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, who I still detest and despise. She used to have us sit down. Boys and girls, you must understand there's a difference between the Mexican population and Hispanics. There are mestizos, mulattos, negros, etc., and she ran it down. But my husband and I, we are classified as white because we are straight from Spain, from Hispania. And I listened to this nonsense for a whole year in the 4th grade, for 12 months interspersed with the vacation periods of this garbage of somebody breaking this stuff down. The woman was a horrible teacher.
All right, so,
but that was the reality amongst themselves. And one last point. The sheriff of LA County for years, decades, was Eugene Biscaluz, a Spaniard. they called it, Mexican. And in California and other places like Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, you did not have a discrimination based on just your ethnicity as somebody who was Hispanic. You had discrimination based on what your racial ethnicity was, with this Hispanic thing not being counted because white Spaniards, white Mexicans were classified as Caucasians, and they ran politics in some places, but they were treated as white, not Hispanic, just because you had a Hispanic last name, Rodriguez, whatever it may be, or Gonzalez, did not mean that you were not treated as white, because this thing they have now where they've evaporated the ethnicity relative to race or mixture is a relatively new thing.
All right. So I want to swing it back to the 8A program because Pete Hegseth, he said in that video that they're going after the fraud. It's a lot of fraud. And I believe it.
Yeah, for sure. It's everywhere.
Right. So I think people get uncomfortable or up in arms. Oh, he's dismantling, these programs that's meant for minorities, that's helping Black businesses. And it's like, no, because again, like that chart, 28% of these contracts did go to Black businesses that was under the Biden administration. But how much of fraud, how much of these contracts were actually part of some type of fraudulent business, right? And
for everybody.
For everybody. So it's a couple of things going on here because you highlighted, it's like, okay, the Trump administration, you want to get rid of DEI and let it be on merit and not race, right? Or a particular group. It's just everyone should just be, everyone should be on merit equally. But you usher in the Orthodox Jewish community specifically. So it's like a contradiction that's going on.
Exactly.
And so that's one. And then two, I do understand and agree with go after the fraud and implement, things to see, okay, let's see your books, let's see the bank statements. But you're contradicting yourself at the same time.
Yeah, because you're going after 8A why aren't you looking at so-called legitimate companies as well? Like there's plenty of contracts that happen through the military. We should look at all of them to see if there's been waste, fraud, and abuse. How about taking a look at nepotism? Who knows who and who's getting money? That's not merit, right? Even though they're not minorities, it's just regular, businesses that we used to naming them when it comes to military stuff. Look at them as well. So good point that your auditing seems to be leaning toward race and DEI. So it's a reverse DEI sort of discriminatory auditing when you should be looking at everybody. But of course, implement efficiency and effectiveness to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, but do it overall.
Right.
And above all else, our merit, being a descendant of the founding Black population, is merit enough.
Yes.
It is. Given what has been promised, what has been done to our people and what has been promised to our people, it is merit enough. It is just a matter of how do we go about eliminating all this extra grifting that people do who fly over here tomorrow and suddenly they become a minority and get special dispensation when they've contributed no equity, no building, no blood, no bones to this nation. And I don't think there's anything pathologically DEI about that. It's truly the Reconstruction post-Civil War social contract is to make that right. The quadrillions of dollars that have been extracted from our families. You've given it to everybody else. White women have become massively enfranchised by affirmative action and what one would call exactly. So white men set up the stuff and they help their mothers and daughters and sisters enfranchised from it, and Black Americans, the people to whom it was originally promised because we endured the extractions, benefit from it least. Black immigrants benefit most from affirmative action as well. Make it make sense that a descendant of a slave trader in Africa can fly over here and benefit from what our families endured and what the nation promised to us because of what their ancestors did. That makes no sense to me.
So
May I ask you a question?
Judge, one second. Because I know you're short on time and you have a meeting. So I do want to wrap this up because I don't want, and you have a busy day.
Yes, ma'am. I have to be done by 5.
And that's 15 minutes, but I'm not trying to be up here for the next 15 minutes. So Judge, whatever you want to say, just make it short because I need to let her go.
A question I was going to ask you, really, I mean, never mind. I'll pass on it. It was just
you want to text me about it?
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
It's just that, isn't there a danger that this may once again be just another avenue to insidiously sneak in a dependency again?
So here's my thought. These programs have to be structured in a way that have off-ramps. They have to be structured in a way with lineage-based programs that develop capacity and have off-ramps to them. So it's not like somebody is getting a check necessarily from MBDA every month. You're delivering a service. And per the auditing requirements, you need to be doing actual work in the delivery of that service. It's any other business purchasing agreement, procurement, where you're actually fulfilling a contract. So I don't think that's dependency. I think that is certainly getting a special set aside because of what has happened to you and what was promised, but has been given to everybody else. But in exchange for that, you are doing a service to fill a need. I don't think that's dependency at all.
I'm just concerned about somebody getting a check and sitting back and doing nothing. It might be reparative or it might be restorative, but I saw this develop personally. I was a grown man when it started, able to vote by whiskey. And I saw the dependency that has grown over the last 50 years amongst the Black population of this country because people said they are
Yeah, I will say that with every population, you will have people who struggle with the idea of making ends meet by the sweat of their brow. There are plenty of white folks who are gaming the disability system today, as well as the welfare system today. So that's not a uniquely racial thing. I think we certainly have to motivate people to earn your own food, but you don't deprive a whole population what is rightly, I will say rightly due to them because of a few bad actors.
Right.
He's having tech issues. Oh, now it's his turn. It was my turn the last couple of days.
Tech issues. Yeah, can you hear us?
I hear you now. It's interesting that I always get cut off at these moments.
Yeah, we got to start. We got to wind it down.
I know, but I'm just saying it was interesting to get cut off at these moments. What I was going to say is I've just seen this thing where for the best reparative purposes, minorities, particularly Black folk, get reduced to a state of dependency with what comes out of it because there are no conditions that the assistance be used for self-improvement or for restorative purposes. It's just, okay, you're like one of our pets. We take care of you, feed you your kibbles and bits, see that you get your shots in some place to stay and you get walked and exercised appropriately with that last part cut out.
Yeah, no, I did address it because I knew where you were going with it. And I basically, to summarize, it's not just the Black community where people struggle to make ends meet by the sweat of their brow. And there are ways in which to design programs. And this is from an MBDA and an 8A standpoint. This is a procurement arrangement where you are delivering a service. And if we're purchasing something from someone, then we need to make sure whoever it is actually doing the work to deliver it.
Right. Because
you're talking about these contracts, yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, and because we already have over $100 billion fraud going on in Minnesota, and they are not Black Americans. So, again, if we're talking about restitution, reparations for descendants of slaves, foundational Black Americans, freedmen, you know, I don't want to hear no one from any background and in any gender questioning what we're going to do with the check, because all you other people out there, whether it's nepotism, whether these refugees, these immigrants, Anglo-Saxons, you have been defrauding this government for centuries and continue to do so. And we are not the highest population receiving social services, i.e. welfare. So that's a dead talking point when people try to belittle what we going to do with the money. Forget all that. That's not even a conversation.
Or where the money coming from, right? Because we got money trees shaking all over the place. And I know plenty of Black Americans whose families wouldn't even allow them to get on welfare.
Right, exactly. So listen, we got to have you come back.
Thank you.
Now, personally, as a disclaimer, I think anytime you're getting federal money, you need to account for what you're doing with it.
I agree across the board. And I hope that with the DOGE efforts that the Trump administration is doing, they are right to do that. Make sure that you are, again, living up to this non-DEI, right, implementation and how you're auditing people as well. Yeah, we ain't paying for stuff for free out here. The fraud and abuse got to go from everybody.
And just another disclaimer, the Orthodox Jewish community, they have a serious Silk Road from the state of New York going down to the state of Florida, where they have, whether it's education, infrastructure, trading within our nation, legals, you know, it's not, and that's not bad. That's good. So these people are already set up getting state funding, and a lot of people in that community are all on welfare as well.
Yes, there's a big
and there's a lot of fraud with them with this real estate, and I'll have to do a whole show on that. So yeah, but I really appreciate you coming on. Pamela Denise Long for Senate for the state of Illinois. Go to her website, longforsenate2026.com. Donate. And if you live in the state of Illinois, vote in the primary. And I'm just going to have you back on in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the conversation. Take good care.
All right, you too. Love having her on. Great guest.
You understand some of what I interjected, I have to, because I'm being recruited for a political run myself. So some of the things I can't just say, I go for this.
I totally get that. It's just that I always tell you about time, because she literally is going to another meeting because
I know how that works.
So not me cutting you off. And honestly, if this was pre-recorded, it's and this is live. So pre-recorded, we just have more time. And we tried last week. Yeah. Real quick.
Got 10 minutes to get to where she's got to go on another call.
This is a good conversation, and I wish it could be longer. And that's why I like to do pre-record. It's just that it just couldn't happen last week. So, but I'm glad she did come on. Thank you to the Jackal. I'm from Argentina. My mother is Irish American. Other half of my family, we trace our roots to Argentina to the 1500s. The Irish side of my family is not seen as white, nor are any Slavic descendant Latins I know.
They ain't know what your data. They ain't know what your data.